Week 1 NFL picks powered by Liquid IV Hydration Multiplier. Fuel your play. And it is finally time to play. I'm Chris Hassel. Thanks for joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. We're going to pick every single Week 1 game against the spread. I've got Brady Quinn next to me. We also have Pete Prisco joining us as well. Let's look at the first game of the season. Thursday night, the Bills, preseason favorites to win it all, against last year's Super Bowl champions, the LA Rams, home dogs. But look at the defending champs in their openers since Y2K, 19-3. And the Rams are even getting points. Let's pick some winners with Brady Quinn and Pete Prisco. Great to have you guys with us for yet another year of picks against the spread. Hopefully Pete does a little bit better this year. Let's start with that game, the Bills giving points.
Wait.
What?
I'm the winner. Look, I won. I'm the
winner.
winner.
Not last
Number
year,
one.
the year before, 2 years ago. Not last year, Pete.
I've won every year.
No.
You're awful, Brady.
We are going to keep track of the win-loss against the spread. Brady also likes to pick all the over-unders as well. So let's start with this first game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills here, and I know that's against conventional.
Pete did have a better record last year.
Oh, he did? Okay. Was that through playoffs, too? Is that what we did?
Because, yeah.
I think we gave him a shot through playoffs.
Yeah.
That was how that ended up working out. I digress, though.
I gave you a shot.
No, I think it was the other way around. But, again, all semantics at this point, Pete. It's all in the past. You don't have much more time in your future, so we should probably get to this. I like the Bills in this matchup, and I know that's going against conventional wisdom. We saw the stats, 19-3 since Y2K, as you pointed out. Also, McVay, undefeated in openers, too, during his head coaching tenure with the Los Angeles Rams. Something feels different about this one, though. It feels like they really needed to do a lot this offseason for a Super Bowl winning team to bring it all back together, whether it was convincing McVay to come back, Aaron Donald to come back. Heck, they still have the locker room there for OBJ if he ever wants to come back. This is a talented team and roster. They're obviously going to be celebrating the success from a year ago, but I think it's going to be the team they're playing against that's going to end up finding that success, at least in this Week 1 matchup. The Buffalo Bills are as deep and stacked of a team as I think we've seen in quite some time. And I know they haven't been there quite in quite some time, but I do think this is going to be that year that could be special for the Buffalo Bills. So, Pete, I think they get off to a fast start. I know they're giving 2.5 points on the road, but to be quite honest, there might be a lot of Buffalo Bills fans in that stadium in L.A.
I'm with you, Brady. This Bills team is so talented and deep, and it's a passer and pass rushers league, and they have the passer, but they also have a deep pass rushing group. I mean, they have 8 guys that can get after the quarterback there, 8 deep on the defensive line. And the biggest difference will be one team has Von Miller, the other one doesn't. Sack, fumble, game over. I think the Bills will get a lot of points in this game as well. I think both teams will score, but I think the Bills in the end will put down Matt Stafford late to win it. I'll take Buffalo minus the points, and I think it gets a little loose, so I'm going to go with the over as well.
I'm on the other side of this one, though, Pete. I think it hits the under. I think this game ends up being a little more low scoring, maybe a filling out period through that first half, and then things pick up in the second half.
You see that number there, the Bills winning 12 games by 12-plus points. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but here's the flip side of it. They were 0-6 in one-possession games, including the playoffs. But Josh Allen has been great covering on the road. Teddy Bridgewater, look at it. Teddy cover, man. 24-6, covering 80% of the time when he gets Spready Bridgewater, Jack says is his actual nickname, when he gets a start on the road.
Everyone underestimates the guy. Like no one's backing Teddy Bridgewater. He keeps overcoming the circumstances.
Well, we've got the Dolphins game coming up against the Patriots in just a little bit. We'll talk more about Teddy Bridgewater's Dolphins and Tua Tagovailoa's Dolphins. But we move to another CBS game on Sunday, and it's the Baker Mayfield Bowl. Mayfield and the Panthers, 2.5-point home favorites against the Browns, who will likely start Jacoby Brissett.
I cannot wait to see this matchup between the Browns and Panthers, and really more the schematics to it. You know, what the Browns defense is going to do to eliminate, some of the things Baker Mayfield likes to do and try to make him feel uncomfortable in the pocket. Myles Garrett's going to be going after him. But the offensive line was one of the issues that the Carolina Panthers wanted to address this offseason, and they did so with their first-round pick. So looking forward to the Ike Ekwonu matchup versus Myles Garrett when they line up across from one another. Still, I like the chances for the Carolina Panthers at home, which were one of the better defenses last year in the NFL. And then a healthy Christian McCaffrey. I mean, what a difference that's going to make for this offense, along with a guy like Baker Mayfield, who I think when he's healthy can play at a really high level. So if you're comparing the two quarterbacks, Clearly, Baker Mayfield's the better of the two options, but I'll lay the 2.5 points. This number's actually jumped. It was 1.5. It's risen already to 2.5 for the Carolina Panthers. So, Pete, I'm laying the points. I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I don't like this. We're agreeing too much. I'm with you. I'm laying the points as well. And look, Baker Mayfield played hurt last year. Everybody in the building knew it, and he toughed it out. He didn't play very well, but he did play through it, and that's a sign of a guy who likes being on the field. He'll love being on the field in this one. But you're right, Christian McCaffrey's back. And when you look at the interior defensive linemen for the Cleveland Browns, they are not very good. They have some young guys they like, but they have a long way to go to be considered good on the interior. I think McCaffrey will run the ball. I think Baker Mayfield will take shots off of that, and I think they'll find a way to cover this. I'm with you. I'll take Carolina minus the 2.5.
That would mean it'll be 18 consecutive seasons without a Week 1 victory for the Cleveland Browns, and you'll be seeing those stats again next season when we pick the 23 season. Let's move on to another CBS game. It's the defending AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals at home, 6.5-point favorites against the Steelers, and Mitch Trubisky's getting the start.
My only reservations about the Bengals at this point is really their defense and what kind of stride or step they're going to be able to take. And they're going up against a Pittsburgh Steelers offense that's talented at wide receiver. They look to improve their offensive line in the offseason, but they're taking on Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback. It's a bit of a wild card, but I'm betting this game's going to be close, in part because the Pittsburgh Steelers defense being able to hold down the Cincinnati Bengals offense, at least to begin the season. So, Pete, I don't feel great about this one. It's a divisional matchup. I think they tend to be pretty close. But I'll go ahead and take the 6.5 points in Pittsburgh here. I do think Cincinnati wins their home opener. I just don't think they're going to be able to win by a lot.
You know, this really goes against the quarterback scales. It really does. But I'm with you. I'm taking the Steelers as well. I think these divisional games to open the season, usually a little lower scoring. They're tough, physical games. They know each other very well. And Joe Burrow, I saw him 3 weeks ago. He must have lost 35 pounds. He just did not look good. I just don't think they're going to be clicking early in the season. And I think the Steelers, they have some playmakers on the outside. The big concern, though, is their offensive line against that defensive front. Trey Hendrickson and gang will be able to get after the quarterback. That will put more pressure on Trubisky to get outside the pocket and make plays. And I think he'll make enough of them. So I'm going to take the points as well. I'll take the Steelers plus the 6.5.
Pete, are you worried about Joe Burrow? That's the second time you've mentioned him in the last couple of days and how frail he looked when you saw him.
No, because I think Chris, in those 3 weeks, he's probably gained some of the weight back. But he walked through the locker room and he looked frail. And then it came out, you could tell that it was much worse than what they let on initially. It was actually ruptured, and that's a dangerous situation. So, no, I'm not worried about him. I just think they'll get off to a little bit of a slow start in this one.
Yeah, appendectomy.
Pete almost makes it sound like they're not going to be able to make another Super Bowl run with the way he's talking about Joe Burrow right now.
Well, he's got to make 2 of them in the next, 8
years?
No,
that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah. Win 2.
Because you know what? He's got 1 and he's got 2 and 10 is what 1 and 10 is what I said, not 2 and 10.
2 and 8 now.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a few years ago.
He's got to win multiple titles in the next 8 years, which is possible.
It's
almost
very
did it last
Pete.
season.
I mean, to your point, Pete, you almost were right. You weren't right. You're almost right.
Yeah, almost. So close.
That close, Pete.
So close. By the way, Pete said he's going to put Joe Burrow on his fat ball diet this year to get some weight back on him.
That would make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Get that weight back so he's not so
If anyone
frail.
knows, Pete knows.
Let's move on to the Ravens and the Jets. Also, a CBS game early afternoon on Sunday. Zach Wilson working his way back, but Joe Flacco named the starter.
That actually might be a good thing for the New York Jets, to be honest with you, Pete. I mean, I think early on, too, going up against the good defense in the Baltimore Ravens, maybe having a veteran guy with all the additional talent they put out around the quarterback position in New York would be a good thing. I think the one question you had about Zach Wilson is his decision-making. And even though he played better towards the end of the season, it's hard to feel great about what you saw early in the preseason for the limited snaps that we saw. That being said, this is a much improved roster from the New York Jets. I do think this game is going to be tight. I didn't have a great feel either way. I'm going with Baltimore just because I think they're going to have a better season. They're the better team in this matchup, even though they're going on the road. That being said, Pete, I actually like the over better than I did the spread, but I'll go ahead and lay the 7 points and go with the Baltimore Ravens.
I'm on the other side on this one. I'm going to take the Jets. I think the one thing Joe Flacco can do is get the ball down the field. And when you look at the ability of the Ravens to rush the passer, that's their number one concern going into the season. Can they get enough pass rush? And so for that reason, I think he's going to stand back there and hit some shots. They have some talented receivers outside, some young guys, but there is talent there. And I think he's going to keep it close. And you know what they say? It's a revenge game. Guys love revenge games. They play harder. No, they don't. but he'll find a way to keep this one close.
And you saw those numbers. The Ravens 0-6 against the spread last season when they were favored by 4 or more points, favored by 7 in this one. That's the first disagreement, by the way, against the spread for these two. Patriots and Dolphins, Tua 3-0 against Bill Belichick, and really, going back the last decade, Bill Belichick struggled in South Florida, so he brought the Patriots down 5 days early before the game.
Well, Tom Brady also struggled in South Florida, at least in Miami. He didn't struggle so much in Tampa since he's been there. But look, call me crazy. Maybe it was just too oftentimes trying to pick those games where you felt like, yeah, maybe it's the Dolphins or the Bills or whoever else you're looking at going up against Bill Belichick, and you're going to go ahead and lay the points. Not in this case. Something tells me that this is an improved New England Patriots roster. I do think they've got kind of a renewed focus going down to South Florida. Typically, I feel like they end up going down to South Florida late in the season, not early in the season, like we're seeing in this matchup. But something tells me that the Patriots are going to kind of be in the fold of everything at this point, at least as far as looking at a wild card spot. I think Mac Jones has improved. And I think you're gonna find that out a little bit as Tua and Mac go and battle this one off. But I'll take the 3 points. Again, not a game I felt strong about. I do like the under. I think that's another great play in this one.
This is one of those teams in the Patriots, if he gets this team to the playoffs is one of the best coaching jobs he's ever done. I disagree with you, Brady. I don't think they have a ton of talent. I don't think they have a lot of talent across the board on defense at all.
I said the roster's improved. There's a difference.
Well, improved went to the playoffs last year. If you think they're improved, they're going to be a deep playoff team. I don't see it. I just don't see it at all. And here's an interesting nugget. Bill Belichick has never lost to a division foe 4 straight times. Think about that. That's incredible when you think about it. He's never lost to a division foe 4 straight times, and this could happen in this game, and I think it will happen. I know we've heard a lot of hyperbole about Tua this summer, how great he is. And everybody in the Miami camp is like, they almost have a mandate to say that no matter what he does in practice or in a game. We'll see. And I think he'll play okay here, but we'll see as the season plays on. But I think in the heat, I don't care how many days you're trying to get acclimated to it. It's been brutally hot down here. That's going to be a factor. I'll take Miami minus the points.
Okay, so just okay is going to get it done versus Bill Belichick is what you're saying here, Pete.
I mean, Mac Jones has been awful this summer with that offense. I mean, just awful. And I know it's the preseason, but he's been terrible, Brady.
Well,
and he wasn't good at the end of last year.
You just said we shouldn't read too much into what the press clippings are about Tua.
I don't, but they look disjointed.
Now you want us to in regards to Mac Jones? You're speaking out of both sides of your mouth.
By the way, they look disjointed. No, they look disjointed this summer because they don't have a real, who's their offensive coordinator, who's calling the plays. And not only that, he didn't play that well in the last 5 games of the season. He just wasn't as good last year. He kind of hit a peak and then went back down. So I think the jury's still out on him as well.
Hey, do the quarterback scales for this one,
what are
Pete?
the quarterback scales here, Pete? What do we got?
Yeah, I'd probably give a little edge to Mac Jones because I don't think Tua's all that good.
So you're going against yourself then?
No, well, I'm picking the better team in the Heat.
But that's twice now he's going against the quarterback scales. Can we keep track of this?
That's true. That's true. That's 2 times.
Steelers, Bengals, that was the first one.
That's a rarity.
And then we got the Patriots.
Kirk Cousins might have a chance
too.
this
Divisional
season.
games.
We'll see. Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers a little bit later.
I marked these down,
goes.
Pete. We'll see if the quarterback scale wins out.
By the way, we saw the struggles that Bill Belichick's had coming down to South Florida as head coach of the Patriots. The last 11 times he's been down, he's lost 8 of those matchups. First time the Dolphins have been favored over the Patriots in 9 years, though. So we'll see how it turns out. Pete is really high on the Indianapolis Colts. He had them just outside of his top 10 in his brand new power rankings.
Really high, but just outside the top 10.
Just outside, number 11. They are 8-point favorites against the Houston Texans.
Yeah, and I'm on the Texans side on this one. I think the Texans will be improved. I know Pete's going to go on and talk about Davis Mills, how he's the only one who saw that. Apparently, he's the only one who watched any Stanford film. The reality is, though, too, I'm not necessarily buying in yet on the Colts being able to just bring in Matt Ryan and everything's fixed. It's not like things were that bad necessarily with Carson Wentz last year. Yes, you had some of those ugly plays, and he did play great down the stretch. But by and large, statistically speaking, it wasn't that bad. So I think that this roster is still going to take some time to gel together. It's one of the better defenses, though, in the AFC, and I think that's what's going to keep this one close in my opinion. But bottom line is I think the Texans are a better team. I think the stability of bringing in a guy like Lovie Smith to kind of continue to keep bringing along this group is going to play out a lot closer in this one. Divisional matchup, 8 points. It's just too much for a week 1, in my opinion, Pete.
It's so nice of you to give me credit for Davis Mills. I'm appreciative of that. I thank you
You're the only
for
one,
that.
Pete. No one in the history of football ever
well,
mentioned anything good about Davis Mills before you.
If I remember anything about the draft night, I don't think you liked him all that much. I'll be honest with you.
I didn't say that.
If I remember back to.
Yeah, that you remember. You always remember things that end up complimenting you. Like you're the only person that Joe Burrow ranked number one.
No, that's not true either.
Okay.
I never said that. But I did like Davis Mills more than most people, and I think it's going to play true, and I think it'll play true here. I think this game gets a little loose, by the way. I think it's going to be high scoring. Nico Collins is going to emerge this year as a big-time threat down the field. Davis Mills will have some success thrown against that Indy defense. And I think Matt Ryan and Jonathan Taylor will get theirs as well. So I see a high-scoring game, but I'm with you. That number's way bloated. I'm going to take the Texans in the points.
Indy outscored Houston 62-3 last season, but it is a new season, and the guys are riding the Texans +8. All right, let's recap some of the first picks, the early games on CBS on Sunday, and the Thursday night game between the Bills and the Rams. A lot of agreement to start. They agreed on Buffalo, Carolina, and Pittsburgh to cover. They also like the Houston Texans to cover the 8 against the Colts and the over. So lock unity there on Colts and Texans. HQ presented by Liquid IV, picking every game against the spread. These are the early games over on the other network, Fox. Commanders at home is 3-point favorites. Falcons, Lions, and Bears, all at home, all home dogs. Brady, Quinn, and Pete Prisco here to pick every game. Let's start with the Saints and the Falcons. Pete, I'm going to let you go first on this one because I thought that was the most surprising thing about your power rankings was that you had the Saints all the way up at 6.
Wow.
You and the rest of the football world, by the way, based on all the comments I got on it. Look, I think that team is so talented on defense. And remember, they limited Tom Brady to no points last year on the road. They limited Aaron Rodgers to 3 points on the road. Well, it was technically a home game, but it was at Jacksonville to open the season. And they're going to be even better this time around. I think that defense adding Honey Badger will help them a great deal. They're raving about Marcus Davenport and his ability to take the next step and might end up being the best defensive player on that team this year. And so for that standpoint, I think they're going to be really dominant on defense. And it all comes down to Jameis Winston. And I think he's going to play well enough, provided he doesn't try and be a hero on every play, to really hit some shots down the field. And remember, their bottom 3 receivers on the roster this year were the top 3 guys a year ago. Now you get Michael Thomas back, you get Chris Olave, and you get Jarvis Landry. They're going to be a good football team, and I think it's going to show up right from the start. So I'm going to take the Saints to dominate a bad Atlanta offense. I take the Saints minus the points.
You know, Pete, it's going to be an interesting week one because we've got so many home underdogs. And this is and a lot of divisional matchups, too, for that matter. And this is one where I look at it and go, I think everyone's walking into the season saying the Atlanta Falcons, you know, because it's Marcus Mariota and maybe eventually it'll be rookie Desmond Ridder at quarterback, they're not going to be able to compete with some of the likes of the teams in their division or at least on their schedule. Defensively, I know there's some concerns there, too. I don't even know what the Saints need to necessarily be the team or top 6 team like you think they need to be in order to win this one. It is going to be interesting to see, though, offensively what Arthur Smith comes out with for Atlanta. You've kind of heard all throughout training camp and preseason there's going to be some wrinkles, there's going to be some creative stuff to help them find more production. I don't think that's going to matter in this one. I think the Saints are going to go ahead and take advantage of what is a lesser of the 2 rosters, so I'll leave the 5.5 points. But I'm telling you, we could have a different conversation a week from now about all these home dogs and how much there's more parity than maybe we want to realize in the NFL.
Atlanta was 0-7 at home against the spread last season. But you guys lock unity. Saints and the under, the picks from Pete and Brady on that one. All right.
Yeah, but you know what, though, Chris?
What?
Hey, Chris, Brady put a little asterisk next to it, just like if the Atlanta covers. I was really scared of that game. Well, why don't you pick them then if you think that's going to be a close game?
Hey, Pete, I'm pointing out the fact that so far, as we've gone down all our picks, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 games now of all our picks have been home underdogs, and there's still more to come. I'm just pointing out the sheer fact that we have divisional matchups, tend to be tight, and we have home underdogs in the NFL. That usually isn't a good recipe when you're picking road favorites, and that's what we're doing in some of these cases.
You're like Kyle Shanahan, who we're going to talk about in the next game. You're hedging. You're hedging, Brady. That's what you're doing.
It's unbelievable.
I love it when Pete imitates you.
Yeah.
He always grabs his chest. His eyes get real
He needs to
slanty.
suck in a little bit more. Maybe that helped too.
All right, speaking of Shanahan, 49ers, Trey Lance era, beginning in Chicago. They are touchdown favorites. The Bears were 0-5 against the spread as home dogs last season.
Yeah, the Bears roster just is in a bad spot. There's no other way to put it right now. Now, I'm not necessarily saying I'm buying into the 49ers and Trey Lance all of a sudden becoming the player that he needs to be at this point. He still looks green, in my opinion. But I think the 49ers are going to be able to run the football effectively. They'll put in enough boots and move the pockets to make Trey Lance feel comfortable and be able to get a win on the road versus a first-time head coach and Matt Eberflus and a roster that I guess Darnell Mooney is your go-to guy at this point. Cole Kmet at the tight end spot. It's just an uphill battle, I think, for the Bears this year. They're in rebuilding mode with the exception of what they have at quarterback in Justin Fields. And that's tough to go up against. And the San Francisco 49ers roster, I think, is built to potentially go deep into the playoffs when it's all said and done. So I'll lay the 7 points here. I do think this game hits the over at 41. It's pretty low, so San Francisco's going to have to do the bulk of that scoring. But I do think this will be a little more high-scoring game than maybe what some others think.
This is a home dog. I think by next week we're going to see how even these teams really are. No, I'm kidding. I'm with you, Brady. I'm taking the Niners. But I will say, this is a big game for Trey Lance. I mean, now you're the guy, and you're starting on the road, your first game. This is your opportunity to show people that you can be the guy. And I still think bringing Jimmy Garoppolo back is a little bit of a hedge for Kyle Shanahan and gang. And you've heard some things about Trey Lance. I talked to some people in Minnesota said he didn't look great in those couple of days they worked with them up there. So there are concerns about Trey Lance. That's why this is an important game for him. But I'm with you. I think Chicago's roster is bad. They haven't done a lot to help Justin Fields out. And the 49ers with that defense will find a way to win this game and cover the number.
Okay, both agreeing on the 49ers there. A lot of agreement so far.
Yeah.
From you two.
Well, a lot of road favorites we're agreeing upon, at least in this portion of the show.
See how that turns out. Let's move on to another road favorite, home underdog, the Lions, getting 4 at home against the Eagles. And now last season, the Eagles ran all over the Lions. They outgained them on the ground by nearly 200 yards in a 44-6 win.
Maybe I'm a sucker for Hard Knocks, but I just kind of fallen in love with the way Dan Campbell's just trying to pour himself into this team. Bottom line, he's a passionate guy. I think this is also a roster that's become more improved. You add a pass rusher in Aiden Hutchinson, something that they've needed desperately off of the edge. I think you start to see their secondary grow up a little bit too. Jeff Okuda's starting to play more like the player they were hoping he was going to be. And look, offensive line play, defensive line play, they're I guess I would say one of the better, at least in the NFC. So I think this game is going to be tight. I'm not necessarily buying into the Philadelphia Eagles just running away with the NFC East or becoming a wild card team again this season. I think maybe that was just a year too soon. Maybe they come back down to earth. I'm going to take the 4 points and the Lions here, but don't be surprised if they don't just outright win this one, Pete.
Yeah, if it wasn't for Hard Knocks, this number would be 6. I mean, let's be real. Everybody's getting caught up in Hard Knocks fever, and the Lions are going to be a feisty, tough, physical team, and they're going to be really good on the offensive line. I agree with you on that. But it's going to be a year from now when they actually start winning these kind of games. The Eagles are ready to win right now. I mean, that roster is loaded. They're talented across the board. You talk about really good offensive line. They're dominant up front. I think defensively they're going to be much better as well, adding the 2 corners. So for me, this is an easy one. I think Jalen Hurts shows what he showed in the preseason, which everybody's raving about his ability to get through his progressions now, which he didn't do last year. So I'm going to take the Eagles minus the points. I wanted to find a way to take the Lions here because I looked at it and I said, home dog, feisty, tough team, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take the Eagles minus the points.
Okay, one more early game to pick here with Pete and Brady, and it's the Jags at the Commanders. Pete, the Jags have lost 17 straight road games. Their last win was the Raiders' final game in Oakland. That was pre-COVID.
Well, they got rid of Brady's buddy that now works with him at Fox, so that's a big advantage for him. And they got a real coach in there in Doug Peterson, which will be a big advantage for him. That's going to make Trevor Lawrence that much better. I think defensively they're going to be surprisingly good this year. They haven't been that in a while. They've been run on and run on and run on over the last couple of years. They're much better up front. I think getting Walker to go with Allen will pair them and give him a couple pass rushers. And let's not forget, the last game of the season last year, all Carson Wentz had to do was beat the Jaguars on the road, a bad Jaguars team that wasn't playing for anything, and they would go to the playoffs. He didn't win. He won't win here either. This is an upset special. I'm taking Jacksonville to win the game outright. So if you're going to give me the points, I'll take it.
That sounds special, but it ain't going to happen. I'm taking the Washington Commanders in this case. Look, as much as people want us to put in that last game of the season last year, that's not the kind of pressure that he's under at this point. He's taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Pete noted they are improved. No one's going to doubt that. No one put more money into their roster in the history of the NFL than the Jacksonville Jaguars did this offseason, so they better be improved. They better be able to keep this game close. But I'm still laying the 3 points with the Washington Commanders. I've got to see it before I can buy into it.
Just can't believe how many road games they've lost in a row, Jacksonville, a team that doesn't even play in Oakland anymore. That's where they won their last one, 2019.
Do the London games count as a road game? I mean,
not if it's a designated home game. No, it does not. Here are the picks from Brady and Pete. It's lock unity on the Saints and the under in Atlanta. They both like San Francisco to not only win in Chicago, but cover, and then disagreements on the other couple. HQ presented by Liquid IV. A look at the late afternoon games on Sunday, 2 of them on CBS. The Chiefs are at the Cards, Chargers and Raiders. Well, those games are both going to be high scoring, you would think. Interesting NFC North game, the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, the two-time defending MVP, taking on the Vikings in Minnesota, and Titans and Derrick Henry hosting the Giants as 5.5-point favorites. Let's pick them with Brady, Quinn, and Pete Prisco, and let's start with that Chiefs-Cardinals game. The line this week has jumped from 4.5 to 6.
Yeah, the Cardinals have played really well to begin seasons. That hasn't been the problem for Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray during their tenure there together. It's been how they finished the season. Now, they're not going to have DeAndre Hopkins. He's obviously gone for the first 6 games of this season. But still, even with the loss of Chandler Jones, I do think this roster is capable of keeping this one close while playing at home against the Chiefs. And on the flip side, for the Chiefs, even though everything looks like it's clicking on all cylinders, we'll see once we get into an actual game where teams start game planning for you to see if the impact of Tyreek Hill no longer being there plays its part. One of the things that I think, Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill really excelled at was when the play broke down. That was where he'd be able to extend plays, buy time, and find Tyreek Hill down the field. Who's going to be that guy? Is it Sky Moore? Is it Marquez Valdez-Scantling? Is it Juju Smith-Schuster? I don't know. It could be any one of those 3. But that's one of those things that kind of comes along as the season goes along. So, look, I'm not saying the Chiefs don't win this game. I think the Cardinals are able to keep this one close. So I like the Cardinals. I'll take the 6 points, another home underdog. I think it's a lower scoring game, under that 53.5 number we see.
Boy, I'm on the other side of both picks for you, Brady. I think the Chiefs are going to be fine without Tyreek Hill. Yeah, it's tough to lose a guy like that because he can stretch the defense, but I think with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, they'll be able to compensate. They still have some weapons. They still have some speed. Valdez-Scantling can run. And so I think...
Is Mecole Hardman still there, Pete?
He is. He's still there. And I think defensively, the Cardinals, who's going to rush the passer for the Cardinals? That's a big question for them. Without Chandler Jones being there, they have to get somebody else who can rush the passer. I think that's going to be a problem. So I think this gets higher scoring. You're right. The Cardinals play well early in the season. I think Murray plays well early in the season. He'll get some points. But I'm going to take the Chiefs in a high-scoring game, and I'll lay the points.
Okay. I mean, you did hear me say the Chiefs are going to win, but I think it's closer than what we think here, right?
Well, yeah, but we're picking against the spread, Brady.
I'm just
Come
making
on,
sure.
Brady.
I'm making sure you heard that, just like the news when you told us Mecole Hardman got cut.
Hey,
so.
Yeah.
you're never going to live it down.
I didn't say, I never broke that news. I read something.
Yes, you actually broke it to us.
It
was actually news to us. We reacted off the news you broke on this very show.
Chris found it.
I saw what Pete saw. I got a number to back Pete's up. Kansas City's won 7 straight season openers. Okay, longest active streak in the NFL. But a number to back you up, Arizona, 6-0 straight up as a dog last season. Oh, that's incredible. All right, the other game on CBS, late afternoon. This is the rematch of the greatest Week 18 game ever played. Raiders and Chargers, and both teams in that arms race in that AFC West reloading this year.
Yeah, I mean, look, Pete, someone's got to lose. Someone's going to be on the outside looking in. I mean, maybe mathematically it can happen. All 4 teams can get into the AFC for the playoffs, but that's the hard part. It's like people tend to forget, yeah, the Raiders went to the playoffs last year. And look, you got a new head coach in Josh McDaniels. He's one of the best offensive minds out there. Obviously, you give Devontae Adams now a quarterback to go with Derek Carr. There's familiarity there. You add Chandler Jones on the defense. We could go on and on and on. The reality is, I think the Chargers, it's time for them to kind of take that next step. They've obviously made some additions, too, on defense. This was one of the toughest games to pick for me. I'm laying the 3 points. I don't feel great about it. I'm fascinated to see how both these teams play this year, Pete, because I think one of these two, in my mind, is on the chopping block as far as who's not going to make it to the playoffs for the AFC West. But high-scoring affair, and I like the Chargers laying 3 points.
This just in, Brendan Staley just went for it on 4th down before the game even started. So you got that going. He's got that going for him. I'm with you. I think these two teams are going to be really good. In fact, I think both teams will make the postseason. I think the difference in this game is the uncertainty of the Raiders' offensive line against the 2 pass rushers. I think getting Mack is big for Bosa. I think they'll be able to get after the quarterback and cause some problems. And I'm a big believer in Josh McDaniels as an offensive play caller. He does have talent around Derek Carr. They should be able to move the ball. But in this one, I think the difference is going to be, I think they're going to be able to get their pass rush going for the Chargers. I'll take the Chargers minus the points.
Chargers at home in LA, favored by 3 against the Raiders, and both the guys like the Chargers to cover that number. A couple other games over on Fox at 4:25 Eastern Time, and the better of the 2 games, one would think, is a divisional rivalry, Packers at Vikings. And the line's only 1.5. If the Vikings can sneak away with this, the division's going to be interesting this season.
I'll let Pete talk about the quarterback scales because I know that argument at some point is going to take place. But I want to talk about the defense for the Green Bay Packers. This may be the best defense that they've had in quite some time, probably since they won the last Super Bowl. That's how much I think about the Green Bay Packers defense. I think they're going to load the box to stop the run. Everything in that Kevin O'Connell stemming back to the Shanahan system all really is provided off the outside zone running scheme, right? The play action, the boots, everything off of that. They're going to stop Dalvin Cook, and then it's Gerald Alexander matching up with Justin Jefferson to shut him down on the outside. But that's going to be a matchup that I'm looking forward to watching. 1.5 points here. It's close for the Packers being on the road. I'll lay the 1.5. I do think the Packers get this win outright, but I do think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I really like the over in this matchup, Pete.
Yeah, I would go with the under. I didn't make it a pick, but I would lean to the under because of that defense you talked about. I mean, I think the Packers defense has a chance to be special this year. I mean, they're loaded across the board. The secondary, if it stays on the field, is probably the best secondary in the NFL. And that's saying something. And look, I know the Vikings are going to be better. In fact, I think they're going to be in the playoffs. I think they're going to score points, a lot of points, but not against the Packers. And here's you see that number, 13-0 13-0 touchdowns to interceptions for Aaron Rodgers. He's going to light them up again. I know these receivers aren't the same, but I think he's going to have success again here. So I'm going to take the Packers minus the points. And as far as the quarterback scales, I've already said Kirk Cousins is going to have a monster year throwing the football. He's going to put up big numbers. The difference is one of those 2 guys can get it done when he needs to get it done.
Yeah, Pete, you predicted on HQ.
He did.
As part of your bold prediction.
That's right.
That Kirk Cousins would lead the NFL in passing touchdowns.
Yeah. He's standing
going to
by
have a big year.
The one thing we didn't,
I think he's going to have a big year.
The one thing we didn't talk about in regards to this matchup, where I think the point's going to come from, is Green Bay on that Minnesota Vikings defense. I mean, obviously, Mike Zimmer's not there for a reason, in part because that defense has dwindled down over the years where it was a shell of itself of what it used to be when Mike Zimmer first got there, being one of the best, if not the best, third down defense, and that's been an issue for them. So big question marks as far as how they respond, what they look like in this matchup to start off the season.
The other 4:25 game, kind of the redheaded stepchild of the late afternoon games, is the Giants at the Titans. And you could argue maybe the last month and a half of last season, no team was worse than the Giants, losing every game by double figures. Pete, tell me why they're going to cover this number.
Because they're better. They're an improved team. Their offensive line will be better, and it's been a problem for them for a long time. I think getting Evan Neal is a big help to the offensive line. He'll play right tackle. Andrew Thomas is back healthy again and be the left tackle, and they're much improved up front. So that's going to help with Saquon Barkley, who I think is going to have a good year. I mean, I do think he's going to get back to looking like Saquon Barkley again. And on the other side of the ball, there's concerns. You know, they drafted Malik Willis for a reason. They're not sold on Ryan Tannehill, and I think that's going to be a season-long problem for the Titans. And on the other side of the ball, losing Landry, the pass rusher, is a big hit for them. Harold Landry is a good player and can rush the passer. Where are they going to get those rushes from? Where are they going to get those sacks from now? That's going to be a problem for Tennessee. So I think Titans will win the game, but I think it's going to be tight. I think the Giants hang around. I think this number's come down a little bit. I think a lot of people are on the Giants.
I think the Giants have a hard time stopping Derrick Henry. And you talked about the struggles for Ryan Tannehill. Hasn't been in the regular season. It's been in the postseason. He's been actually really good during the course of the regular season. They found a guy in Treylon Burks to replace what they were losing when they traded away A.J. Brown. Burks looks to be able to fill that void. And look, the defense is much improved. The Harold Landry loss, obviously that's a loss that it's hard to overcome. But I think they're going to have enough firepower and be able to do enough to cover the 5.5 at home where they're really tough to beat. I'm just not high on the Giants right now. I think they're a year away from looking at the quarterback spot again as far as who it's going to be. Brian Daboll's in there as a first-time head coach, taking things over too. So we'll see how that plays out over the course of this game.
All right, let's recap the picks in the late afternoon games from Brady and Pete. They agree on the Chargers covering that 3-point spread at home as favorites against the Raiders. They also like the Packers and the 1.5 there in Minnesota against Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. Up next, why the boys might start the season with a bang. The boys being them boys. Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, they got Tom Brady in the house. Really sexy Sunday night matchup. Time to pick the prime time games. Sunday and Monday night here on HQ, presented by Liquid IV. Buccaneers, slight favorites at Jerry World against the Cowboys Sunday night. And then Monday, that's Russell Wilson going back to Seattle as a 6-point favorite. All right, starting with the Sunday nighter. Tom Brady, 6-0 in his career against the Cowboys.
This is one where I hate picking against Tom Brady. I really do. Pete, I don't know what's going on. Personally, it feels like that could potentially play an impact on how this all works out. A lot needs to come together, I think, for this team, too. When you look at the addition of a guy like Julio Jones, how fast will those guys be able to get on the same page with one another? Bringing in Kyle Rudolph, too, to replace what you lost in Rob Gronkowski. I look at the Dallas Cowboys. Clearly, they have problems of their own. They're bringing in Jason Peters, who's probably not going to be ready for this game. It'll probably be the rookie Tyler Smith, the left tackle. But I kind of trust more, at least where they're at this point, than I do the Tampa Bay Bucks. So I'm going to take the 1.5. I do not feel great about it. If anything, I think this game's going to be a high-scoring game. So my advice would be take the over, but I'll go ahead and take the 1.5 in the Cowboys.
I'm going to take the Cowboys as well. I'm a little concerned about the Bucs, particularly early in the season. I think they'll iron things out. You mentioned the Brady stuff. Why does he step away for 10 days? I mean, that's a little ridiculous in the middle of training camp. Doesn't sound like him at all. They lose their starting center. They lose their left guard, and that's going to be a problem. And Brady, like any other quarterback, you know this, Brady Quinn, pressure in the interior bothers guys who don't move that well more than anybody. And I think it's going to be a problem here. The Cowboys aren't great on the interior, but they can move Parsons over to the center and rush him from there. They can do a variety of things. So I think it's going to be a problem. I'm going to take the Cowboys. I'm concerned with no Tyron Smith over there because they've struggled when he hasn't been in the lineup. That is concerning, but I think this is one of those games where Dak Prescott plays really well and pulls out a game with some help from his interior defense.
A lot of people like you guys doubting both these teams going into the season. The Buccaneers with the offensive line and the Tom Brady stuff. The Dallas Cowboys because they didn't do much in the offseason to improve themselves. Let's go to Monday Night Football. The Broncos, touchdown favorites, 6-point favorites in Seattle. Russ looking to cook his old team.
Yeah, and something feels off about this. I'm going to go ahead and take the 6 points or lay the 6 points and then be with the Denver Broncos. I just think they're the more talented team. Vic Fangio would have told you they were a quarterback away. Well, now they have that quarterback with this roster, different head coach now calling the plays than Nathaniel Hackett. So, look, everyone in Seattle is going to stand and give him, his big ovation. He's the most prolific passer in Seattle Seahawks history. He brought him a Super Bowl, a couple NFC championships. The reality is, though, once the game starts, they're going to turn right back on him. And that's going to be one of the loudest places in the NFL to play. So, it's going to be a tight game. I honestly don't love this pick, but Pete, I'm laying the 6 points. I think the biggest thing here is the under. I think if Seattle keeps this thing close defensively, they've improved enough, obviously, to shorten this game and make it a tough game on Russell Wilson.
I'm with you. I'm not with you. I'm on the other side. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, but I'm going to take the points. And I think Seattle's, lacks a lot of talent. They have a lot of young guys. It's a complete rebuild. And they're going to be feisty and tough and hang around here. It's a tough place to play. It's a tough place to open your career as a head coach like Nate Hackett is doing. I know there's going to be a lot of emotion for Russell Wilson as well. I think Denver will win the game, but Seattle's going to hang around, and they'll keep it close. And so for that reason, I'll take the 6 points.
What I've noticed about the worst teams in the NFL is that we like to say how feisty they're going to be. The Texans, Lions, Seahawks. Pete, give me a team. Give me a team that's bad and they're not feisty at all.
Well, the Jacksonville Jaguars were bad and not feisty a year ago. I mean, there's Exhibit A. You want to put that one out there? They were awful and they weren't feisty. They didn't care.
Okay, well, that's last season.
Pete kind of provided the feistiness for those in Jacksonville.
Pete's got the fire in the belly.
He does. A lot of fire in the belly.
So those are your week one picks.
A lot of fire.
From the fellers. Both like Dallas, getting the 1.5 at home against the Buccaneers, and then differing there on the Broncos and Seahawks. Still more to come. We picked every game, but how about best bets and futures for the season? Who's going to be the MVP winner? Rodgers going to do it a third straight time? Allen's the favorite. What about Brady at age 45? We'll see what the guys think next. Performance multiplier fueled by Liquid IV. Hydration multiplier. Fuel your play. We are fueling you up for week one of the NFL season. Chris Hassel joined by Brady Quinn and Pete Prisco. Let's get your best bets for week one. Brady, what's yours?
I like the Arizona Cardinals at home, getting 6 points, taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. As I said earlier in the show, they've been really good early in seasons. That hasn't been their issue. No DeAndre Hopkins. I still think they'll be able to keep this one close. Not saying they win the game, but keep this one close enough to cover that spread.
My best bet is the New York Giants getting the 5.5 points against the Tennessee Titans. They're not going to win the game either, but they're going to hang around. It's going to be a field goal game. And you know what, Chris? They're going to be feisty this Sunday.
Really? That's another bad team that Pete says is going to be feisty. Don't count them out. All right, let's get to some future picks. MVP, Brady?
Well, I want Pete to go first because Pete's always...
Pete, you can go.
Go ahead.
Rodgers has won the last 2 seasons. Nobody's ever done it 3 straight times.
No.
And he won't do it this time. I'm going with Josh Allen. I know he's the favorite, but I really believe they're going to let him throw it around like they did in that playoff loss to the Chiefs. They're going to be much more aggressive even than they've been, which I think is a good thing. Gabe Davis is going to put up big numbers in that offense with Diggs. I really like Josh Allen. And I know they keep saying he's going to run less, but once they get out on the field, he's going to run the same amount of time. He's going to put up numbers running the ball as well. So touchdowns, rushing, throwing it, he's going to put up a huge season. I'm taking Josh Allen.
You know, I could have been chalky here like Pete and pick Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or even, Aaron Rodgers and say, hey, 3 times in a row, it's tough to do, right? No one's done it. I'm going with the guy, though, that I truly believe in, even more so that I'm going to pick him to be the MVP this year, and that's Joe Burrow, someone who Pete claims he's really high on, but apparently he didn't pick him to win an MVP. But look, I think they're going to build off of offensively what you saw a year ago. I do have some reservations about that defense, which I think is going to force them and put them in more shootouts. So I like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and the rest of the crew and continuing to build off of that success winning the AFC last year. So, Pete, I've got Joe Burrow winning the MVP because that's my guy, my Ohio guy that I'm rooting for to win the MVP. I know you've picked him to do something a few years ago, but apparently you don't like him enough to pick and win MVP, huh?
No, I'm picking the guy I think is going to win the MVP. I think he'll be in the race. I'm with you. I think they're going to be much better throwing the football this time around because they're going to get protection. He's not going to get hit as much. So that's actually an interesting pick, and I have no problem with it whatsoever, Brady.
Joe Burrow was in the Super Bowl last season. Who's going to be in the Super Bowl this season, Pete?
It's going to be the Buffalo Bills. And Josh Allen's going to get him there, but it's also that defense. That defense can be really, really good with the 8 guys they rotate up front. I think Von Miller's the difference maker. Sack, fumble, game over in the 4th quarter. They haven't had that. And I think they're going to be one team, and the other team is going to be the Green Bay Packers based on, not Aaron Rodgers, based on like Brady talked about earlier. That defense is going to be special. So I'll go Packers and Bills, and the Bills will win it.
Pete, I'm right there with you as far as the Packers go. I think Aaron Rodgers is still going to play at a really high level, even though he may not end up winning MVP. I think they may even rely a little bit more on that rushing attack, given until they find out Christian Watson or whoever ends up emerging as that number 1 guy without Devontae Adams. But I still got Green Bay winning the NFC. But for the AFC, get the Kansas City Chiefs, right? No Tyreek Hill, no problem. I love the additions they made on defense, in particular in the first round. Bringing in Karlaftis off one edge to help add to that pass rush opposite of Frank Clark, and with Chris Jones on the interior. You get a little help, too, in the secondary as well. And then Sky Moore. Everyone's made a big deal about this. I actually think it's going to be harder to game plan for the Kansas City Chiefs because you're not going to know going into matchups who to take away and who's going to end up being that guy that week, whether it's Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster, or Sky Moore along with Travis Kelce. And I love their backfield too, and I think how they're going to incorporate that. So Chiefs, Packers is the matchup in my opinion though. So Pete, at least we got one of the same teams in there.
Pete, you said that you like the Bills to win it all, right? Tell us why.
Well, I just think when you get to that game, again, I go back to what I said about Von Miller. And I know that this is a guy who's not the same as he was 8 years ago. But he can still impact the game, and they're going to take it easy with him, I think, during the regular season. Late in the game, when Aaron Rodgers is back in the pocket, standing back there, I think Von Miller will be the guy who gets that sack late to win it for the Bills. And that'll be a fun Super Bowl. You got the Hall of Fame quarterback, the young gun who will one day be a Hall of Fame quarterback in Josh Allen, and two good defenses. That's going to be fun to watch.
I've got the Packers winning it. And maybe I'm pulling a little bit for Aaron Rodgers, too, as he gets more towards the end of his career. But, that defense, the way it's built, I think it's enough to really shut down Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers, who's been there before. That history ends up displaying itself as the Packers get another one for Aaron Rodgers. But the surprising thing for me in this is, again, Pete not going with the Cincinnati Bengals.
That means 2 and 7
years now.
We're running out of years, Pete.
We're running out of time, Pete.
It was 1 in 10, and they came close. If it wasn't for that bad offensive line, they would have had the one already.
I mean, Pete, at some point you have to pick the Bengals to actually win one.
He didn't even pick them to win it when we were covering the Super Bowl. He still picked against them.
I mean, you understand that you can't make that prediction and then over that 10-year period not actually pick the Bengals at any point in time to win the Super Bowl.
I picked the Bengals to win the Super Bowl when we were at the Super Bowl. I'm not picking them to beat the Bills. By the way, had the Bills not had 13 seconds, which will never go away, they would have won it all last year.
No, Pete, didn't they tell you that they've totally moved on from that when you visited with them?
Yeah, they believe me, they can't stand hearing that. I know a guy who did a whole big story on it, and they hate him for it.
Well, it's good to be back with you guys next week. Hopefully in our brand new studios here in Fort Lauderdale, we'll all be together again for week 2 picks.
That'd be nice.
Yes.
Brady Quinn, Pete Prisco. We'll get Pete out of his high rise and get his butt in the studio for once, starting next week. Their best bets here and futures. Brady likes Arizona +6 against the Chiefs. Pete's riding the Giants against the Texans. Burrow for MVP, says Brady. Pete's going chalk. Josh Allen to win MVP. And the Bills to win the Super Bowl. Brady, he's got Kansas City against the Packers and Green Bay getting it done.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.